they don't want things said about that, because if humans knew that there's reptilian devices on the dark side of the moon transmitting, he said, I am the way, the life, and the truth. Nobody comes to the Father but through me. Right? That I am he's referring to is for everyone to really experience both extremes, to be so lost and then be so found. That's the most profound thing about being a human. If your mind is closed, you will be a tool for the Matrix. You have to have a very open mind, and that is your greatest power.
I just had a quick look at your last video that you only posted, but yeah, if you want to channel something, then by all means, you need to take a moment to. Do we need to do something to set that up?
Do you want me to channel Nostradamus, or do you want me to channel Jesus? Or do you want me to just open my channel to whatever comes?
Yeah, let's just see what comes.
You don't have you're not drawn to one specifically.
No, no, either one would be fine.
Okay, I have a link with Jesus, and he can speak directly through me if this is something you want.
All right.
Or or it can be more of an integrated reflection, if that makes sense. A little bit of both. I know that's not very common. I've developed my own ways because I spent multiple years in solace and a lot of solitude. And what happened is I would go out of the body and experience these states of consciousness where, the void, it's like one level after that. It's something even beyond nothingness. And that's where a lot of these energies with these other beings and other dimensions, other timelines. So, what I've been picking up on a lot tonight to tell you is like, if I do speak, if I do have Jesus speak through me directly, I see him on the same land I'm on now in the same country, because he also would come here sometimes. He actually performed a miracle here, and it's somewhere in the south in Lebanon. And I saw him tonight now. It's on a parallel timeline, like he's existing now, and he's 25, so it's 8 years before his life ended, and he's in a small home, and it's near the ocean, and there's no one around, and it's like, made it's permeated for this. Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah, I'm getting lots of goosebumps and things going on. So that sounds good.
Yeah. So what happens? I should give a little bit of a backstory, a little bit more
Yeah.
for this channeling, so the audience can understand it. Is Am I speaking now to them?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. We're
Okay.
rolling.
All right. So what happens is when you channel a being, it can be anyone that you're connected to across any timeline, right? Because time is not linear. Everything's occurring right now because the awareness is here. So you have to take it literally, your life, not only rationally, but spiritually. Look at where you are now, and it's vast, right? So when you channel a being, they're existing somewhere else simultaneously or in parallel to you, and there's a link. That link is through the mind. It's even greater than the mind. It's through consciousness. It's through both. And you can actually seep into their screen of consciousness. I know this is a lot at once, but it's basically why, like in a civilization like Atlantis, they didn't need phones. It's very similar to how they would communicate then. And it takes just this precise amount of focus, and you have to be very open. So, like for me and my human experience, my greatest blessing has been my openness to this nature, universal nature. And recently, I've channeled about Three Eye Atlas. I've seen where it came from, the planetary system it came from specifically. Maybe we can get to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, where do you want to go right now?
All right. Well, I particularly enjoyed Tina Louise Spalding's book about Jesus where she channeled his story. And I read very little of the Bible, but I read that one cover to cover, and I thought that was a really interesting story about his life. And um, I guess that's what I have to say. So I think that's probably why that's come up, because I've always interested in sort of finding out more about his life, or what messages that he has for us now that don't come from somewhere else that's already been written.
Whenever I feel him, whenever I link myself, because it takes conscious effort a bit, whenever I put myself with him, like I am right now, I always end up sensing his empathy, but also there's a partial frustration because so much has been taken out of context with what he said. And there's been so much misdirection, misconception with his message. Because if there was a religion based off of everything he actually was doing in his life, then we'd be on the new earth already, right? So we are still as a civilization, as a species, 4 or 5 steps under where he was guiding to. But those steps can be made in a monumental fashion, quick. It doesn't have to be 10 years or 100 years or 1,000 years. It can be 3 months, it can be 8 months. It depends on a certain amount of soul energy, source energy, linking, like what I'm saying now, to channeling their higher self, God, which is something I do frequently. It's really just you going back to your pure awareness. That's what you channeling God is. And that's the misconception, is because they think God is something you get to, right? Like stairs, right? But you're not walking anywhere to go to God, because that's you actually exiting your natural state. And that's a part of life. But God is always here, and he's not somewhere you go to, right? So that's why Jesus, the quote I always mention is, he said, "I am the way, the life, and the truth. Nobody comes to the Father but through me." Right? That I am he's referring to is for everyone.
Mm.
It's I am. Everyone has it. He's not saying I
Yep.
as Jesus. He's saying I as the reference point of your own life experience. Does that make sense?
Yep. I can see how that particular phrase is very much taken out of context, and the original meaning is completely lost.
Yes, yes, and a lot of that has to do with when ignorance meets arrogance, a mighty war begins, and that's the war on consciousness. And that's why Three Eye Atlas is in our orbit right now, energetically, right? In this Earth experience, while we're sensing it these last weeks and coming weeks. We're in the peaking point nearly of it right now. And when I channeled this couple of days ago, I was experiencing that planetary system. There's 3 suns there. It's not like us with one sun. So 3 of them aligned. And on this planet, I saw 10 light beings, and they have their hands hovering over a device, right? And this device is not like a technology that we know on the Earth nowadays. It's not that. It's actually an architecture of the divine. It's of consciousness, basically. Have you heard of like how a UFO would travel through the mind of the being, linking with it, and it's one, right? It's similar to that. It's linked on a level of consciousness, kind of similar to what I was referring to about like direct message from Jesus or channeling him in another place, right? It's parallel. So they're doing that, but they're in sync with their own environment. And they had a group meditation, these 10 light beings, and they put a certain amount of benevolent guidance and spark, because right now the earth is in such a, it's doing this more than ever before. It was doing it 2 years ago. It was. But right now it's so vital and harsh, and there's a lot of oscillation. You go from one side of feeling more in your old self, and then the other side of having to break these patterns and break these old beliefs and lose the dense energy and remember your true self. And it's not taking so much time. Like some of you might notice it's happening a lot in the same day now, right? That's because of this comet. That's because of the and the device is within the comet. The comet is the mask, right? This is the symbolism, and I also must tell you, it was it was given the name Three Eye Atlas because three eye, third eye atlas. So it's the expanse of seeing within and everywhere at the same time, and that's where you link. Like if you're going to see somewhere you're channeling or a past life, which is really just something you're connecting to now, because how can it be a past life if when you're there, you're experiencing it now? So it's a simultaneous occurrence in another dimension. So we got to just tweak a few things in our spiritual phrasing here as humans, because a lot of it actually implies linear time, right? So it's a little bit of self sabotage that was thrown in there, maybe from false spirituality and then from just innocent ignorance, both. And so if you look at it this way, past lives are not like that. So we already, I don't know if you felt it, but we just expanded a lot of space and time and allowed a lot more timeless energy to synchronize in the moment right now. So a lot of beings can actually use that signal transmitter because then it synchronizes into their current present moment. They could watch it a year from now, right? And it's still going to be this present moment. That's the magic of source. And that is what Jesus was teaching. That's how he performed miracles, because he's so in tune with it, right? And I'm not religious. I'm just very connected to him in particular ways. And if society can look at the obvious, if humans can look at the obvious beyond separation, religion, uh, labels, the memory, even, because memory can sometimes trick you. We live so much off of memory, but that also kind of keeps you linear, right? Because you're so much past, future clock, right? And that's all Saturn based reality. That's not empowerment. That's not God. That's belittlement of the spirit to live that way, because it's going to keep you off course, right? You're going to make such little progress in your life, spiritually, energetically, metaphysically. You're not going to reach those peaks because you're living on the time that the system set for you. But when you actually override that, then the system starts to diminish, dissolve, and that's where the new earth comes in. And that's where you see magical things starting to occur, like just a full enchanted life. The things you'll be seeing in 3 to 7 years, even 1 year, even 2027, towards the end of 2026, you're going to notice an entirely different planet. It's not going to be like this. If you stick with this, you're going to shift. There's a common soul group right now that are linked to this three eye atlas energy. They are mainly the ones that are going to see this shift over this next year. They're the ones going through that switching back and forth so much right now. Do you resonate with that at all?
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that? So, is it because we're all kind of on different timelines, and there's this timeline that's aligned with that, and we can sort of align ourselves with that, and there's others that will align with a different timeline? Is that what you mean?
Yes, everyone's experiencing their own screen. See, when I see it. I told you maybe before you started recording that maybe around 21 years old, 22 years old, 23 years old, I would go in the state. And I could do it now, but it was a thing then. And I would go in the state and I'm off of the screen, like I'm off of this consciousness, and it's more of a broadened view of perception. And I see all of these screens, like a security room where they have all of these screens next to each other.
Mm.
I would see that and it's infinite. And what this is symbolic of is that everything is recorded. So your energy is your alignment into which recording you curate with your belief and focus. And the belief and focus has been tarnished through the program of the, I'll just say, lower agenda, right? To, uh, to keep it simple. And if we can start to just because you have a lot of support right now with what's happening, it's very relevant what we're speaking right now, because in these days, exact days, there's things happening around the ether right now that have never happened before. So many souls that came here for this life, including you, actually, before this life started, a part of the soul contract and a part of what you knew you're getting into is this moment, because this is a one of a kind moment, right? Because a civilization, a species, is actually remembering itself in a collective fashion. It can happen right now, right? Um, we don't have to be so tedious with doing it in parts because it's so pertinent that a group of souls gets it. And that's what many beings are watching from other planets in parallel right now. Like how I mentioned channeling into another timeline of the Earth, right? 2,000 years ago. Um, they're doing the same thing constantly because there's infinite beings that exist. There's no limitation. And many want to see this because what an experiment. It's known as the human experiment. Then we're having the human experience, right? And this device is very magical because I'm sure many of you have noticed if you really let go of any rational thought that's still programmed there, there's many things happening, glitches. You will notice a subtle glitch around you, like people start to act up, or a lot of jumbled behavior, a lot of things that are shaken up in their mind, things in the simulation, if you refer to it that way. Like by simulation, I mean simulated reality, like repetitive, mundane behavior. When you notice these things breaking apart, or in your own self, primarily as well, things that just aren't clicking anymore. That's also a major sign because you have to ask, why now? The common trend has been it's been on the uptick, right? It's been going up and you're sensing some sort of resonance starting to kick in your beingness. And that is the consciousness that's all linked. So right now I'm referring to a lot of you as consciousness. And once we start to do that, everything changes.
So is 308 let me try that again. So is 308 Atlas been directed towards us? Have we pulled it up? Have we all pulled it here?
It was created to match us on this exact timeline now. So it's actually sent here, right? And it's sending signals that are creating little glimpses of awakening in each human that they need to experience so that the collective awakening can happen, right? Simultaneously. But for that to happen, it takes a collective focus because your greatest power is your focus. Like if everyone, if imagine if every being on the planet, on their own Earth experience planet, or however you want to refer to it, if every being, many, let's say 1,000 or more, were to focus on this at the same exact time and link through the sense that they're not separate in that way. We're not separate in that way. Okay? So if we were able to do that, which we are, we can do it right now, then what will happen is you're gonna start to notice things in your metaphysical space, the particles, the energy within your body, it's starting to get lighter, right? And that substance is not of the physical world, right? Um, it's another quote of Jesus. He said, "My kingdom is not of this world." Right? Because he's not referring to a place where you go to heaven after this life. He's saying he wasn't dependent on the material realm. And the material realm has been actually one of the main issues for us because we've gotten so fixated on the activity of accumulation, right? But that accumulation will never be enough satisfaction. And I think we're all noticing that in a very in sync manner. Wouldn't you agree?
Hmm. So is that going through that phase of wanting to accumulate things and being sort of really focused on this physical world? Is that just a necessary part of our evolution?
It's the identity that's the problem. It's the identity. It's not the material things. I need to make that clear. It's not having, wanting to have a car, wanting to have a home, right? Or having money, accumulating more wealth through abundance. It's not that. That's not the problem. The issue, the hold up is the identity in the one that's doing it. Because imagine a device that keeps extending. Like, do you know an antenna on a car or a radio or anything, right? An old TV. So it keeps pulling out. Every time you keep doing that as the one each hour, each day who's eating this, doing this, instead of just being with the experience and remembering it as that you're experiencing as consciousness, that is unknowingly an act of self sabotage. And it only starts to kick in once you start awakening, because that's when you're going to start to feel the suffering. And that agitation is your greatest creation because it's going to get you out and it's going to link you back with your actual tribe, not a tribal consciousness on a physical lower level where there's so much dense unconscious energy, trauma, blockage, separation. It's more the opposite, which what would the opposite of all of those words be? Right? All, the opposite of those words would be ascension, illumination, presence, light, uh, oneness, empowerment. And oftentimes I go back to the inner child, which we all have, because you come here with such imagination, and after 3 years or 8 years, usually, especially in the past where we're coming from, right? Uh, it was taken so quickly by the world. They take it most of the time, um, and that is a huge deal because that is essentially your source spark being diminished by 75% instantaneously once you lose that imagination, because the imagination is your link to the creation of infinity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I heard somebody say, like, you think about when you're really young, you're just kind of like taking things in as they come to you, and you don't really think about what's occurred because most experiences are new. But then as you get older, we start to live more in this is what's happened to us before, so this is probably what will happen to us again.
Yeah, that's the trauma loop because it's fear. It will like you fear it's going to keep happening, and then you get stuck in that linear time, the density, the clock, the structure, the construct, and a lot of that has to do with the old paradigm that has to go, because when we're looking at it that way, we're always thinking limited, like I need this. But the thing is, you don't need anything from this life. And the reason for that is because your life itself, you're effortlessly here. If you were having to literally keep a sustenance just to stay alive every minute, every hour, right? Like working so hard for it, then it would be true. That old rational programmed way, it would be true. It'd be very hard to combat it, right? I will admit that. But that's not what you're doing. The source is infinite. If it blinks out for 1 second, right? It's over. So it's that powerful. And I'm sure you're feeling it as I'm clicking into that right now. It's linked to everything we're talking about collective consciousness, new earth, transcendence. It's the same thing. It's from that source. And we can do like a 1 minute meditation very quickly. Not too
Okay.
quickly, but if you breathe and you feel the aura within you and around you, your energy field, your presence, you're aware of your body, you're aware of this voice. Now, I ask you the greatest and most powerful question any human can ever ask. What is aware of this? What is aware of it? Right? Who is aware of it? And most people are going to say, I am, right? But this is where it gets tricky. So if you meditate on that, and meditation is not so locked, right? We can speak a little bit, we can move a little bit and meditate. This is something that has to be integrated into the collective awakening, because they've really thought meditation is, you have to sit still for an hour, and it can be done that way. I feel that's typically more of a beginner thing. Um, but a real powerful meditation is being able to, even if chaos is around you, within a few minutes, always come back to that. It's more of a stationary, not physical presence at all, right? And I'm sure you sensed what was just projected at you. It's very powerful because it's aware of this body, it's aware of the voice, it's listening, it's seeing. So it would be known in higher spirituality, who most of us, what most of us would know, Some don't know it yet, but you're meant to, or you wouldn't be seeing this. Um, it's known as the perceiver, right? Perceiving reality. So imagine you're just watching a TV. But for me, I've had the blessing of being able to see, to be linked to the resonance, the presence of God, and I can see, for instance, he's you don't have to say he, I just say it, but it's whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you feel drawn to, because it is infinite after all, and it's symbolism, whatever energy you're feeling. So I sense him aware of a screen watching life play out, right? And just doing that and getting linked with that, you're free. Every time you're in that state, you're in full freedom. This is enlightenment. Now, you keep kind of oscillating back. And that's what we can talk about now. And that's why this comet is around the planet right now. That's why we see such contrast in the suffering of the earth, and then the hope, the light that's starting to illuminate bit by bit each week, each month. You're noticing certain things within yourself, right? Awakening energies. And that's the contrast, because that's a major part of the awakening. 10 years ago, we couldn't have had this discussion. It would have been very difficult energetically. There would have been many blockages on this discussion, right? Even if it's not
Mm.
intentional. But now this is with ease, it's happening because it's been prepared, right? And one thing before you ask me anything, when I saw that planet, I'm only pointing up there because I see the sky in my view. When I saw the planet where they're doing this and where they sent it from, these beings, for more context, some might want to know, they're a little taller than humans, essentially humanoid, and the light essence they're putting, all hovering their hands over this. There's 10 of them for a reason, because 10 signifies completion, right? Because after 9, the highest number, I think we discussed this in part 1, and after 9 it's 10, 1, 0. It's linked at completion, the end of a cycle and beginning of a new, but completion, right? Usually we count what, 1 through 10, right? We don't count usually 1 through 9. We count 1 through 10. There's symbolism in that, because I would tell you in a quick way: 1, oneness, one source; 0, portal, infinite energy. You can shift anywhere. You shift through that. Like a 0 is a portal, and it's empty, right? Because that's that emptiness. That's that infinite space, because you're really just space here, and the body is occupying that space. The body is the vehicle for consciousness. And yeah, so there's 10 of them doing this for a reason, because it's symbolism of a completion energy. They're completing a cycle for humanity, right? Enough is enough of the shared ignorance, the shared suffering, actually, right? Aggravation, dissatisfaction. We're really, the issue is looking in the wrong direction, right? When you're looking in the wrong direction, there's an analogy, like if God, or a being of God, was around you in your life and wanted to take care of you, but you didn't know it, right? And before they leave their body, they put underground for you a crate with millions of dollars and so many valuable cosmic things that just are not even of this planet. Just the most benevolent package ever, right? And it's there. And you spend your whole life working and suffering, and they're gone now, right? It was there, but you never knew it. Do you get the symbolism? You could have always found it if you knew where to look. And maybe this crate I'm talking about is within you. It's just energetic symbolism. It's not somewhere in a physical ground. It's within the layers of the programming, before that extension that I was referring to earlier, each time, right? So, body identity, mind identity, past, future, worry, right? Trauma, lack, association with others, religion, identity. You see what I'm saying? So then you're going to have to cut one by one. But if we come back to that space, they're all gone. And then what's meant to come back to you will come back, right? What's going to serve the higher good of this species, of this planet, because you should have only one goal. You can have many, but one primary goal should be to leave this planet better than when you arrived here. There's nothing more noble or honorable than that. to leave it better, higher vibration, a whole different essence than when you got here, then that means you completed your human experience. You completed any cycle. You won't feel any drawing to have to come back, or that you missed something or you failed something on any sort of unconscious level, because you will have transcended the unconscious.
So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on talking about through our Atlas still. Yeah, I think it's Avi Loeb. He's one of the scientists that's made a big ripple in the scientific world because he's talking about the things that are kind of odd about it, and wondering why we're not asking more questions about these odd things, and why his colleagues are saying well, either not talking about it, or he's been actually actively told not to say something. What's going on there?
Oh, there's a lot of things going on there. Do you want to get into the crevices of the matrix aspect of this? Is that what you're asking me?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, so it's very similar to why they wouldn't tell you what's on the dark side of the moon. The moon is fixed. You only see the light side. What's up with the dark side, right? It's because humans cannot integrate there because their energy cannot handle it. So if we go there and discover it, this will become something worse than hell, right? And you're already living in a hell state, right? Most of the time. Not you specifically, not anyone specifically, but the figurative human that's kind of still in that loop, lost in the mind, right? Lost in the ego, not feeling connected to God, or not feeling connected to their higher self or the universe or their purpose, even, right? And the joke is that you're always connected. It's just there's so much damage. So to answer you, they don't want things said about that, because if humans knew that there's reptilian devices on the dark side of the moon transmitting negative music, negative images through rituals that are done in each concert, most of them through trauma patterns that are looped through subconscious manipulation and dreams. If they knew that majority of the ones that are, um, running certain places in the world, we'll just leave it at that, are of that species and just hiding their true skin, then they'd be in a full panic, right? So it has to be a gradual occurrence. That's why you have that divine assistance, because it has to be balanced to take you through that duality experience of misguidance, liars, deception, agenda, the plot, right? And the plot right now is breaking because there's just too many open channels here. Like I'm not the only one. There's so many that are here,
Hmm.
and many that don't speak out. Many that don't speak out, that don't create videos, right? And that's why they know they're trying to bide their time, these entities. Um, so about Three Eye Atlas, the reason they wouldn't want that spoken about is because if humans knew that it was genuinely created by a higher species of light beings who are advanced, right? Then it might awaken certain slots of your collective memory of Atlantis, because these beings operate very similar to that, very similar, with collective mind, higher technology being created to enhance abilities. These are all very Atlantis vibes. And there's many civilizations that have been on the earth, because it's a the time is not what we think. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of years, if not more. If we're just going by years, of many different increments of civilizations going, coming, going. And that's not to get into what's under the earth, what's actually within the earth. We're just talking about the surface here mostly, and space, right? But everything is space, and I see it as a plane is what? Flat. When you get into a plane to travel, why is it called plane, right? Also, planet, the word planet has the word plane in it. So plane, I would just tell you, is flat, flat plane. And I'm not saying the earth is flat. I'm not saying the earth is round. This is for your own introspection, right? Human introspection is the most powerful aspect that you have to introspect internally. Do your own research, and then also sense, intuition. Feelings are stronger than thoughts. That's one of the most powerful things I can ever say. It's so true. You'll feel, because when you can feel the particles, you can feel that, okay, if you get past this scene, it's a flat plane. You go to another place, like in the US, we have something called states. Why are they called states? State of consciousness, state of mind, state of energy. Each state has a different energy about it, almost certainly, right? But what's really been going on that land? Why is everything sectored off? Each sector has its own energy. And also, what about Antarctica? This is the greatest question that we just skip over as a collective all the time. Why is there just this part of the planet where there's been many cases, many, not just channeled instances, but experiences that have been recorded where there's certain aspects seen where nature starts to occur, like greenery. Like you see, it's not ice only, it's shifting and they get sent away. And there's a species there that's keeping it, and there's all the countries there keeping humans away. You got to ask these questions. And I believe that these certain questions will create, in a very gentle and acute way, the totality of the awakening. Because it's right in front of you. We're not talking about channeling another planet. We're dealing with what we got here. And what we got here is plentiful. There's so much, not just with this device in the sky, but the things on the moon, right? The sun. The sun is a portal. Each sun, each star in each planetary system, right? So the one I told you about earlier with three suns, imagine how powerful that is. If a sun is just source light, giving life to a planet, a galaxy, projecting, they're all communicating with one another. You're linked with that, right? You're here to experience the physical aspect, right? And to have that three-dimensional reality and then shift out of it to experience that magical transition. But they're there, these stars, these higher beings, and they're already in the higher essence helping, because it's a journey. Source wants to experience itself, remembering itself, right? Because otherwise it'd be quite lonely if we weren't manifesting into all of these other, yeah, vessels and other experiences and memories and planets and countries or timelines, right? Stories, everything is possible, by the way. I mean, mermaids, they exist. Vampires, they exist energetically and then physically. Uh, there's a lot of different species that exist, and I'm not saying they're directly around you, but they very well could be. Um, One thing we have to admit is the ocean is mostly unexplored. And have you yourself ever gone into the ocean and spent a few months and traveled and see what you found? Because then you'd be manifesting your own experience, but we have a lot of blockage around that because, it's not so desirable physically, fear, certain things that a lot of it's programming, but at the same time, it's not the most yearned for experience to go far out there. But imagine what's in there, like what is under the ocean. Many species that exist there are not from this planet. Octopus, they're not from here. 100% not from here. They were brought here. Dolphins, they were carried here in golden crates from somewhere else, far away, brought here because they have these telepathic abilities and they're always keeping humans in alignment somehow. Each thing serves its part. They're keeping the nature in alignment in the ocean. Then why do you think humans love to go play with them so much? All these species in the ocean, why this one primarily? Someone rational would say, oh, because it's cute. I would tell you there's more to it, because why are they the only ones that we've really analyzed and they have this ability to have telepathy and send signals in metaphysical ways to one another and communicate through sound, right? And that's also linked to how before, when God first manifested himself into existence, he spoke before he saw anything. Because sound has more connection to your brain, but it has more connection to your affirmation, to your belief, to your voice, your throat chakra. One of the main things I do in sessions with clients, I always end up opening this, right? But unless a being is going to continuously move energy within themselves, unless they're going to keep their emphasis on focusing on shifting their reality, on awakening their energy, they're going to get caught in the same loop, right? And the sound that you create here, it carries, it's like a tunnel, literally, this shape. and it's transitioning all the lower and higher and integrating it. And the message I'm giving you, I am like, none of this is planned. It's coming through in such a, it's like the ocean, the waves of the ocean. And as consciousness, I'm relaying to you the fact that you have it all available within you. And each soul that came here now came here with a purpose. You signed up for it before this life. And I'm here to remind you of that, right? And what links us is not just soul energy, but it's consciousness, right? The thing is, my friend, if I say my body, I'm saying my. So I'm saying it's like a possession almost, like it's something that's tangible outside of myself. If I say my mind, same thing. Here's where it gets very subtle. I say my soul, same thing. Because I would say we're all from the same source as that awareness expanded out, but we have that link. So we're naturally adept and attuned to mention ourselves from that source, right? You understand what I'm saying? So we're saying even my soul because that's a part that's, it's a fragment, but then it's joining with others. So a soul group. And that's who's going to see this video mostly, right? Because there's so much to be ignited once that happens. Once it's a remembrance on a collective level, once that happens, you'll start seeing different frames of reality. You'll start seeing memories that you have from the other side. Your dreams will enhance. Your chakras will open. Your powers will become much more useful because you won't allow yourself to be thrown off so easily, right? You won't be distracted by the mind so easily, or people around you that represent mostly the mind, or the old life, because the old life will not be here in the way it is now and it has been if you believe that it won't be. That's where belief comes in. And that doesn't mean you're going to see something immediately, but you'll see gradual and then abrupt and then gradual and abrupt. Because if it happens so extreme, what's the point? And you wouldn't handle it if you went from, just three-dimensional to infinite dimensions and then you stayed there. The body, it can't handle it. I've experienced that firsthand. It's an integration process because these waves are coming at you and you're absorbing it like the ocean. Ironically, the body is mostly made of water, right? And what does the moon dictate? What does the moon control? Right? The waves in the ocean. And where do these reptilians have the devices put? On the dark side of the moon. I'm sure you've heard of the soul catcher, right? That's one device that's there. But there's multiple others that use sound, frequencies, imagery. Um, there's so much to it, but we don't have to be on those dark levels anymore. Like once you understand it, the only reason I mention it is because once the collective starts to really recognize it, you're going to start stepping away quicker from it. And then it's going to fade away like a distant memory eventually. And that's a major point of this device in the sky right now, because what Three Eye Atlas is doing is it's shining a light on something that we've been blind to for so long, right? And I'm not blind. I have seen that world for what it is for quite some time. And because I've been a bit separate from it in the physical, I've had the blessing to have that extra space to be able to refer to spirits so close. Does that make sense? Because if we use our mind on a physical level, that's how I'm referring to it. You're getting closer, you're going to get closer to one of the two. You can't get close to both at the same time. You can get closer to spirit and then enjoy the physical more. But if you get lost in the physical, then you're caught in the third dimensional reality, right? You're caught in the program. You're very susceptible to being controlled, manipulated, and drained and unconscious. And then your dreams get messed with. Most of us forget dreams, right? I mean, I have instances where I have 8 to 12 dreams casually, and it can be very overwhelming, but I'm remembering them more and more and more the more I keep going to this focus. That's the training process on a spiritual level. Does that make sense? It's a refinement
Yeah.
of energy.
So what is the interest in us, the human species, for these beings, not just the beings that have sent through our atlas, but any of them? Just, I've heard a lot of channels saying like there's really, it's almost like we're kind of like the main event that a lot of people are watching. I mean, is it because we're either going to implode or something amazing is going to happen. What do you think?
I feel called to let Jesus speak now for 1 or 2 minutes at least
Yeah.
to mix it in a little bit. Okay. I want to add one thing before I let him speak mostly. When I channel, it's not like some others where it's more extreme, where you're going to notice extreme movements or vocal adjustments that seem to be altered. Everyone is different. My channeling is much more in flow with who I'm with. It's not having to force to them, if that makes sense, because I'm only connected to a select few in this way, like on other timelines, channeling them with focus. So it's really integrated vocally and physically, but it is him speaking. And he is 25 years old, living. It's ironic and it's purposeful. He's living in the same place I'm currently located in Lebanon. Um, not he's not living there, but he's visiting there because he would go back and forth between Palestine and Lebanon and other parts in this region. He even went to India, which they have
Hmm.
most likely almost completely removed. There's many things about him, but at this age, he's 25 and he's in a very devoted state with God, as always. But each year, right, he had to go through his testing phase like we have had to. And I'll let him speak about this and how. What was your question one more time about what are we going to
So,
see it in?
what's the
Yeah.
what's the fascination with the human race from these other species who seem to be much more evolved than us?
They're just yourself on another timeline. They remember you because their memories are open. Humans have shut themselves off to so many memories, to so many energies, so many lives that they're living in sync with one another. So they're in separation. And the second humans can get out of separation, they'll notice that those beings are actually amongst the same protective layer that God allows us to live as in each timeline. It's not limited to one place. I and the Father are one. That means the source is everywhere. And it's there with them, it's there with me, it's here with us, it's here everywhere. The source is everywhere, which means metaphysically, each planet, each species, each life is connected. It has to be that way because it's all coming from one source. So if we can start to look at it very simply, spiritually, beyond tangibility, but through essence, then the vitality of spirit will live on and create what is meant to happen for you because you exist with infinite energy, infinite knowledge, and it's just waiting for you to awaken it. I want to drink some water for a minute.
Sure, you can't all too actually. You all right to keep going for a bit longer, Rad? Probably got about 10 minutes. So if you want.
You want to do another 10 minutes of
Uh,
speaking or channeling?
yeah, yeah. If you think you've got that, if you think you can, I've
Well,
got a few
I want to give you all a little
questions.
bit
Going.
of it. I want to give you a little bit of a hint, everyone listening. What you just heard was Jesus directly, but the whole time I've been speaking, it's actually him in the totality consciousness. That's why the return of Christ is actually the consciousness being awakened within all of us that links us with Jesus. And that's actually before the religion was formed, with certain intentions from a certain group. Before that happened, there was this urge. from him to speak this. And where we just heard him speaking from is a very potent space. I felt it. One of the signs you could look for if you ever channel is you're going to feel heat. You're also going to feel the body tremble just a little bit. You're going to feel maybe a little weaker physically after, potentially. And you'll just know it. So I actually don't even remember anything that he said. That's also a good thing because it shows I was so present, right? And that presence is your greatest present, right? All the words are so purposeful. We discussed this in the part one we did. Um,
Mm.
like, why is it called the present moment and present? They're hinting at it constantly. You're gifting someone because it's the highest gift. With that, you're connected to everything. And we all have to go through the stepping back into it. This is a part of the cycle that we're within. But what makes us great, what brings us to the totality of the awakening, is that one moment where we realize we are not owned or submitted to only that side. We actually have something greater that's always here, and it's what even watches the soul. When the soul comes out of source and it goes out in space and transports to different universes, creation itself, very original aspect of God, right? These aspects creating universes, creating galaxies. Even that action, it's watched because something is seeing the souls go out and create these magnificent places in the universe. It's seen, right? So that same awareness is here right now. That's how spectacular humans are. And the most unique thing about humans is that they have the ability to really experience both extremes, to be so lost and then be so found. That's the most profound thing about being a human, for me at least.
Mm. That is a profound statement, to be so lost and yet to be so found. I like it. So, is there anything that's because I really have guests come back a second time for a recorded interview, but you really felt strongly about it, and it was the same for me. I thought, yeah, of course, come back. Was there anything that you wanted to relay to people that maybe you haven't said yet?
In this discussion, I haven't really said too much about myself or what I do, but if anyone wants to have a session with me where I can take you to this space within and clear out any blockage, you can contact me through the email in the description of this video if you'll put it there. And
Yeah.
that's the main way to contact me. And then I have my YouTube channel and my TikTok. These are the main two things I create with. And I want to give you a little spiritual practice. We did a little meditation, some channeling, but a good practice would be I said like my YouTube channel. Why do they call it channel? Isn't that interesting? It's very interesting. Now, a lot of rational mind people, this is very dangerous. We have to be aware of this. I'll try and cover this within just a couple of minutes. So
Take your time.
if you're making such profound, powerful progress within your own evolution, yet you're still hearing these voices of doubt, that is that is the devil speaking. You have to be very careful with that doubt. I want you to remember when you were a child and you were straight into this life from source, innocent, the veil was not so thick. The trauma has not been so created in the present lifetime, right? The imagination most likely not taken yet. You're still very present, like you said in the beginning, right? Going with the flow, natural flow state. When you were there, you didn't have doubts. You might have asked questions, very curious, but you didn't have such hard doubt, right? Such argumentative doubt so naturally. This was an acclimated program from the demiurge, from what has created the matrix. And some would say, some very intellectual beings would tell me right now, ask me, well, wouldn't that be from the same source? Isn't that also God because it's all one? I say, yes, that's the dark side of the play. That is the void itself trying to pull you further into the abyss to keep taking the energy. That's the game itself, really. And the most wild part for us is that it's all within. So that's your own mind. And these people, you might see some comments, you might hear some things where they'll say, oh no, just using words like channel. Okay, it's a coincidence. YouTube channel, and he's channeling and possession, a physical possession, and a possession, a spirit possession, right? An entity possession. That's not purposeful. That's a coincidence, right? So these people who say these things, 95% of them, you have to be very careful because it's really just an internal test. It's your own timer, seeing are you serious about your awakening or not. So don't treat it lightly. You have to know how to detach from that because that's very limited, right? There are billions, if not trillions, of possibilities for numbers, words, names, memories. Yet you have the memories you have this body within you, within yourself as consciousness. As I said earlier, the body is the vehicle for consciousness. And you have these words in front of you, very select words. I only just mentioned a few, right? So if you can take those words, even I'm so grateful for God and the infinite intelligence because I just remembered one that I really want to give y'all. Individuality has the word duality in it. Individuality, duality. So when you're in that so individualized state, you're separating automatically. Now,
Mm.
that's a natural occurrence. But like I said earlier, the problem is when you keep extending and you're over emphasizing your focus on the external. You imagine if you forget yourself after one or two times, what's going to happen after 100 times in a week of constant behavioral patterns? As a spirit being, you have sensitivity. You're sensitive to energy. Um, so you have to protect your energy and you have to keep remembering. And at first, it takes more effort, but use what's in front of you: energy, numbers, words, astrology, the amount of knowledge that's in astrology, the amount of knowledge that's in the ether around you that you can connect to. You have so many metaphysical abilities, and I feel the moment humans start speaking metaphysically and about the spirit realm more, that integration will automatically manifest in the earth. I see it being very quick at that point. So once we advance past the very linear, limited ego mind kind of mundane empty discussions, right? What's going to happen is the opposite of that, which would be universal magic power. You're going to have memories just coming back into your screen. You're going to remember other lives, and the magic is that they're happening now. So when you go in a dream tonight and you experience that other place, I want you to understand that that place is just as real as where you're at now. 80-90% of the time, you're not even going to know the difference when you're there. That's purposeful from the universe because it's very real when you're there. Your consciousness is implanted there and you're experiencing it. Now, sometimes dreams feel quick or blurry. That is because we have such a dense pull, like a tether, right? In sync with your name of this channel, pulling the consciousness, right? Instead of being untethered, there's a tether pulling them back here so they can't even have that access to subconscious power, universal knowledge, because there's such blockage, resistance, distortion, rational mind, closed. A closed mind is a weak mind. You have to be very open in this life. This would be actually my final advice. If it was my last day in this body, I'd say probably a few things, but one of them would be if your mind is closed, you will be a tool for the matrix. You have to have a very open mind, and that is your greatest power. One of your greatest powers, top five for sure, is a very open mind because then everything starts to adapt and evolve and transition. And we're all in a transition. We're all right now in a collective transition. I recommend that you refer to yourself as consciousness. I recommend that you do your best to refer to the ones around you or in an interaction like this as consciousness. Right? Like speaking with you right now, I feel very like naturally connected with you, so I can refer to you as consciousness very easily. But you should practice it with anyone. Do your best, because when you can see the subtle life force energy within a being, within any interaction, you'll start to notice the commonality. And then you're already cutting those layers away, right? You're getting back to the source. And that source is where you will have all of your power. And it's within us all. All we need is everyone needs a little help. Every being needs a little help. You all have to have some sort of guidance or remembrance or knowledge and practice, spiritual hygiene, not just you're only taught physical hygiene. Actually, spiritual cleansing is so important. And I can only tell you how much chaos is in our life each day because we were taught the opposite of what to do with our energy. It's really, it's so purposeful, I feel, because what happens is the energy is being siphoned and then you have these entities, which is one of the main things I do in my sessions. But there's more than just entities. Like guiding you to consciousness is the most important part, but entities are all on you. They cling to you. Like imagine, one analogy I love to use is a light at night outside of a house and all the bugs flying to it. Sometimes you'll see many, right? That's the same thing the entities do with a being. It's the same exact process because it has a light emanating from it, and they are not of this realm, so they need to extract it to prolong their existence. Many of them do not exist without that, or it just makes them feel better about themselves, right? Which I'm sure you've seen in individuals you've known in your life to keep antagonizing or projecting. And a lot of this is just possession. A lot of this is illusion, and you can fix it by just focusing on everything that we discussed here. It can be fixed. It can be amended so quickly. It just there has to be a little twist of consciousness, right? And the more you do it, you refine it. I promise you. If I'm wrong, if you do it for a few days and nothing's happening, tell me I'm wrong. Contact me and we'll speak. I'm telling you the truth. If you focus on this, your problems start to fade and they'll come back for you to test you, right? But the quicker and the more at ease you can be with getting off of it, letting it get off of you and not having that programmed reaction to kind of go back in the motion of the mind and in the motion with these egoic states, these trance-like occurrences where you're very disconnected from your power and you're kind of just in the play, right? Instead of only being lost in that, you come back here and something else starts to work through you because we're all channels. And once we start to channel the collective more, channel higher realms and infinite space, then that's where telepathy becomes more active. And that's what these other civilizations like the Mayans who disappeared as a collective because they reached a certain dimension within themselves with such spiritual practice and discipline and remembrance, right? And Atlantis, they had this. That's why everything was so advanced because they utilized these things. And now it's our turn.
Brad, it's been fun having you back. Oh, I actually want to finish off with something different. I want you to help me interpret a dream that I had last night. How's it sound?
That's great. I love that.
All right. So it's only fairly short. And like you mentioned before, often in some nights, especially if it's early in the morning, I'll have multiple, like many, many dreams, very short ones, like 5-10 minutes. Be asleep and be a different dream. In this particular one, it is pretty short. I was standing behind a counter, like a sales counter, and I was buying something. I can't remember what it was that I was buying, but the person behind the counter, they had to use a different merchant service. they had to, the machine they had wasn't going to do the job for whatever it was that I wanted to buy. and they needed to get, and in my mind, I knew exactly what they had to do. So, oh, you've got to get this other one going, and then I'll be able to purchase it, right? I don't know why I knew that, but I knew that. And they were trying to get it started by like inserting another card into the machine, but it wouldn't go in the right way. It was always kind of like getting dragged in sideways or diagonally, and they were kind of being like, "Oh, this is kind of weird. It's not working the way it normally would." And I was thinking, "Oh, it's all right, you'll get it," but they never did. That was pretty much it. What do you think?
Oh, I feel God, I feel Jesus, I feel the universe, I feel myself, I feel you, I feel everything right now telling me to tell you exactly what that means. I see it so clearly, clear as day. It's so clear. What it means is if you're going to, so a lot of the problems we hinted at here, we hinted at beautiful things and some problematic issues a little bit that need to be fixed, right? So if you're going to fix these issues with the problem itself, it's not going to work. So that's the symbolism. On a spiritual level, it's showing you, wait, let that internal adjustment move and don't try and fix it with the same devices that come from that system, because it's the same system that created of the transactions, the merchant, the matrix, the consumerism, the buyer. And before anyone says, well, we need this stuff, well, I'm not talking so literal. So much of this is symbolic of mental belief and internal attachment. um, so if you're trying to fix something from within the problem, it's an act of repetition, right? And I've heard this so many times on a worldly level. What's the definition of insanity, right?
Doing the same thing over, expecting a different result.
That's exactly your dream, because you're doing it with the same exact mechanism of approach in the physical realm, but instead it needs to be done from a higher perspective, because that problem you're seeing is that you're not connecting with that dimension where you want to purchase something, right? Your spirit is rejecting it, but your mind or memory is trying to keep that play going. Imagine like an old tape before a CD, like a VCR,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, so like imagine you keep putting it in, you want to keep watching it and entertaining yourself, but it keeps coming back out. That's what I see right now through my channel. That's what that's telling you spiritually. That it's time for change and to stop trying to replay the same thing, because there's an automatic rejection process happening here energetically.
Right.
Does that resonate
Right.
with your
Yeah.
life at all?
Yeah. There's something in that for everyone, isn't there? Yeah, that's good.
For sure.
All right. Okay, Rad. It's been fun having you back again. It's good to see you. Glad to see you doing well over there in Lebanon. And yeah, I wish you well, buddy.
I'm so happy to see you too.